I'm joined now by Chef Ryan Smith. Ryan, thank you for being here. I was saying these are my favorite kinds of interviews because I love food. You have a food truck that I've been told I have to try, Fork and Fiddle.
Yep.
I want to know how you got into food to begin with.
I think, like most chefs, get into cooking because of their mom or their grandmother. Mine was both. I had my great-grandmother, Cleo King, was phenomenal, and I spent a lot of time as a young kid with her, and we would, me and my brother would be playing under the table with our G.I. Joes, and she'd be making noodles, and the flour would be falling. We'd act like it was snow, and so I've been around food. I can't remember going to either my grandmother's or my mom's house, walking in the house and I'm not smelling amazing. So I think that's how I got into it, just my grandmother and my mom. Yeah.
So was cooking your creative outlet for as long as you can remember?
No, actually it wasn't. I didn't really get into cooking until right after high school, but I got a job at the St. James Restaurant in a villa, and I worked under Chef Peter, and he became the instructor at the Impact Institute, and it's a culinary place, and it's for high school students in Noble County. So,
Did you find that you were good at it right away? I think that some people are just inherently good cooks. Was that you?
In some aspects of the cooking, yeah. If you can follow a recipe and do everything right, then generally it turns out decent. But I think to get good at cooking, you really have to have a little bit of experience in a kitchen. If you're going to do it professionally, there's some great home cooks, but if you're going to do it professionally, to get good at it, I think you really do have to have some experience and learn from people who are better than you. And the Air Force is where I actually learned the really good techniques, the technical skills and stuff like that most chefs need.
How is it that you learned so much in the Air Force as a chef?
Well, I was really lucky to be stationed at Herbert Field Air Force Base. It's the AFSOC command, the Special Forces Air Force Special Operations Command. They had a really good food program there. 16th Services Squadron is what I was in, and they had 3 dining halls. One of them was the first buffet style in the Air Force that we helped bring online. Actually, our squadron won Outstanding Unit with Valor for our food service, and the whole 16th Services Squadron. They do hotel and all the hotel restaurant stuff on base, and they have some of the best training. We had chefs from the CIA, which is the Culinary Institute of America. Betty Crocker would come, and corporate people, all these great people who'd come in and train the airmen and the chefs there, and that's where I got all my training from that. And it was really, I think it was probably better than if I would have went to school for culinary, because it was all practical every time that I cooked, because we're cooking for thousands of airmen and people a day. VIPs would come in, senators, all kinds of people that we cooked for, and we really had to be on top of our game to support that much volume and the type of people we cooked for.
So what do you think was your biggest takeaway from that experience? I can imagine that you just learned more than you can imagine.
Because we did so much new stuff there, and it was kind of the front lines, I guess you would want to say, of the culinary side in the military. And I was in the military when it was a point where it was transitioning from this old style military, regimen to a more corporate feel where training was important. The technical skill was good, and the technology was catching up with the military. So it was really a good time for me to be in it, because I was able to not only learn how to the cooking skills of it, but there was the anything that you need to run a restaurant with food costing and all the skills you need to be a restaurateur. And it was really a tangible skill that I could take into the civilian world. So I absorbed as much as I could while I was in there, and I to this day I use all those skills every day when we're on the truck.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when you, after the Air Force, you started doing some catering. At what point did you decide you were going to go the food truck route?
Well, I had the catering company probably 6 years. We were doing it, and then I lost a couple jobs to food trucks, wedding jobs, wedding gigs, and it became a fad, you know. And the Fort Wayne food truck was really blowing up then, and I talked to my wife and I said, you know, we might miss this if we don't do something. So that's why we actually decided to do. And I want to let you know that I actually have a food trailer. It's a food truck. It's part of the associations and stuff like that, but it's actually a trailer. And the reason we decided to do that, because I told you we lost jobs to weddings.
Right.
And I was thinking, if I got an actual food truck and the engine stops and it breaks down and I can't get to the wedding, someone's day is ruined.
Right.
I can borrow a truck to get the trailer there. So, and it was a little bit cheaper capital-wise to get in.
Yeah.
So we decided to go that route, and it was actually kind of like some of the mobile kitchens that I used in the Air Force. When I was in Saudi and stuff, we used some mobile kitchens and stuff, and we designed it just like that, and we run it pretty much like we did the kitchen there. So
That is incredible. So you had an idea of what kind of setup would be effective.
yeah, when you're doing those kind of things, and you decide to do a food truck, you need to really actually, before you order it or anything, have your menu straight and know what equipment you need for that menu. It'll help you in the long run, and knowing where you need to expand. If you want to expand your menu, you'll know what equipment you have and where you need to go and how to get there. So it's like a roadmap, just following your menu. So when we decided to do that, we looked at the menu that I had going for the catering company. What would be food truck friendly is what I like to call it, food truck friendly food. Because you know, a lot of chefs are really good at a plate, but they get on a food truck and they're not sure exactly how plating, presentation, all those things will work out.
Right.
Those are things you have to work out too. And your equipment list and your menu, that's going to be the foundation of setting everything else up. Yeah.
Let's talk about your menu, because it is full of low country influences.
Yeah, low country influences.
So tell me what that means. It's a South Carolina thing?
Well, depends on where you're at. The Low Country is really the extension of confluences Savannah River all the way down to Pawleys Island. That general area, and that extends in to Georgia, and it goes down to the coast. Some parts of North Carolina, but to me, the true Low Country, and if you ask anybody from Charleston or South Carolina, the real Low Country is the geographic area of South Carolina. It's the coastal regions of South Carolina, and that's where a lot of it influences. My mom lived in Aiken, South Carolina, which is a little north by Augusta, Georgia. It's over toward the border, but we would always go to Charleston and stuff, and that's how I got those influences and learning, you know, that. So it was easy for me to transition all the you know, technical skills that I had to this kind of food, because I grew up eating it and loving it, and it was easy for me to
Now,
do that. Yeah.
tell me what kind of food we're talking about.
What I tell people Low Country is, because, you know, being up north, it's a little bit different. I tell them it's just Southern surf and turf.
Oh, okay.
And if you look at the history of the Low Country and the people who settled it and the types of food that they cooked, there's a lot of French Huguenot influences, Hasidic Jews. I mean, there's so many influences in that area. And they did like most people did when they settled the area. They took the techniques and cooking techniques they had in the old country, and they got here. They had to adapt those to the new produce that they had, the different types of meat, the new seafoods that they had, stuff like that. And that's really, to me, that's what Low Country, the essence of Low Country is. It's a Southern surf and turf that's been influenced by Old World style cooking. Yeah.
And from what I've read, you are trying to source your ingredients much like they did.
Yeah, we try to, yeah. Because of some of the seafood items that we have, I can't, like, all season long in northern Indiana when it's 30 degrees out, source everything that they can. We're about, I'd say, 65 to 70% farm to table. And in the summer, it's closer to 100% because we can source things a lot easier. All of our produce is sourced locally, most of it. But you try to, and the reason you try to do that is because the quality and the taste is always better. Because as a chef, the first thing is important. Local is very important to me, but the first thing that's important is the quality. And if you cannot get locally something that's on your menu, the quality that you can get a little further out, I would opt for the quality over that. Plus the the volume that we produce. You know, we do 8 to 12 services a week, 7 different counties. It's hard to source everything we need from local, but we get as much as we possibly can locally because it does taste better. It does.
Tell me about the art of what you do. I would imagine that having the truck, it adds a whole nother layer, but but the art of creating your menu and all of that. Tell me how that comes together.
Well, as a chef, you know, and doing plate work, and it's easier to, you know, kind of paint the plate and make the art. When you have a boat, it's a little bit different. You have to try to do something. And what I try to do is just take the skills and techniques that any chef would do to make a dish look good by using height, color, the way you would lay it out, how it's presented on the boat, those things. And that takes trial and error. I've probably went through a couple cases of the paper boats trying to get everything right and how I wanted it.
Right.
And when you bring on a new dish or you want to try a new something, you try to adapt what already works and then try to spin a little flair on it. Knowing your ingredients is a big part of it, I think. Knowing different flavor combinations and not being afraid to try different things, that's a big part of it. The art of it, to me, art is always something that's a little bit unexpected. And even to the artist or the chef or whoever, when you do something and you're like, holy crap, that's amazing. I cannot believe I did that.
Right.
How do I recapture that? How do you do it again, you know? And we have to do it daily. And that's why when we've got a menu item that works and it's beautiful looking and everything like, we stick with it until it either doesn't sell or we're just tired of making it. So, yeah. I tried taking one of the items off my menu once, and they about burned down the truck. So, don't you dare do that.
Well, that's when you know it's
Yeah.
really working.
Yeah, yeah.
Ryan, thank you so much for being
No
here.
problem.
I cannot wait to come and taste some of that low country
You'll love
food.
it. You'll love it.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
For more information, visit forkandfiddle.net.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by